Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. You are on the Comic Tropes After Dark channel, but the name of this show is the weekly Spinner Rack because we're going to look at the Spinner Rack and talk about some of the comics that came out this week. Batman Hush 2, Absolute Martian Manhunter. Those are just a couple. There was Radiant Black issue 32, which might have had a little something by me at the very back, almost the very back. Oh, what's that? I did this. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about tonight, though, with the news of the week as well. There's a lot of really interesting news of the week we're going to start by talking about. And you know what? Before I get into any of that, let me give some shout outs to some of the folks that are here in the chat room. They're going to help keep this show moving along, get a little feedback, get a little conversation going. We've got Chemdog, hello, and Wayne and Derek, Joe, Sherb, Dr. Shubil, Christopher DeRose, Daniel, someone. Look at all these wonderful folks. Nice to have you here. Hey, there's David Davenger, Contemporary Comics, Rami, Owen, Beowulf. This is great. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thanks. I have that new sort of intro just to sort of ease into things. Anyway, lovely to have you all here. Hey, EJ, always nice to have you here as well, pal. EJ was just at, I forget which convention were you at, EJ? Was it WonderCon this weekend? I saw that you bumped into David Dastmalchian. That's awesome. Hey, look at that. Atomic Comic Pile coming to us from deep in the southern wilds of Florida. Awesome. Well, without any further ado, I don't think I have any real business to talk about this weekend. WonderCon, right. Thank you. I will get right into the news. Let me bring up a view here. That's not it. There we go. Actually, slightly bigger me. A little more me, a little more host, right? And I'm thinking so seriously about this week's topic. No, it'll be fun to talk about. In fact, why waste any time? I'm going to talk about this. Diamond Distribution has new owners. Diamond, for a very long time, throughout, over 20 years, they really were the only distribution game in town. During the pandemic, things changed dramatically. A lot of new players entered the distribution of comics, and Diamond found itself in trouble. They declared bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and now this last week, basically one exact week ago, there was a bankruptcy auction. Well, they have new ownership. And where did I leave my mouse? There it is. Alliance Entertainment came out as the ultimate winner of the bankruptcy auction for Diamond Distribution itself. They also picked up a number of other assets that Diamond was auctioning off, including things like their toy company and their grading company. And so you may be asking, who is Alliance? You know, this is a big change for comics, getting a new player in town. Well, Alliance is a distributor already. They're a global distributor and wholesaler, kind of related industries. And they got their start in vinyl records, collectible vinyl records, but they've expanded. They do music still. That's their sort of primary starting point, but they do movies and video games and other collectibles that are related. And they have a lot of distribution partners. You know, they sell to Walmart and Target and Kohl's and Amazon, all the big retailers out there. One of the impressive things that I could see reading up on Alliance was how they're set up with logistics and actual fulfillment. It's very much a very modern way of doing things. Kind of like an Amazon warehouse, if you've ever heard of, like, how things are scanned and picked from these massive warehouses and, boxed up and shipped out fast. They know the exact cost that it should cost to move something through one of their shipping warehouses. And I want to say it was something along the lines of 95 cents. So they have to be sure that they're making a profit of more than 95 or revenue of more than 95 cents on an item, or it just doesn't make sense. But they've got a lot of logistics, and I don't know if it's called. I think it is basically a form of just-in-time fulfillment, Kevin. They've got some sort of proprietary technology that they use. I haven't read it enough to memorize that, but it's very efficient. They've been doing it for a long time, and they got into this with, as I said, vinyl records. Now, collectors of vinyl records need that to be in exceptional condition. So one of the nice things that we know is that these guys do know how to ship things carefully so that there are no defects or anything like that. Now, they haven't done comics before, so there's going to be a learning curve, but they should be set up to ship them very safely. They should have existing facilities that should help them fulfill this quickly and efficiently. So that's possibly a very good thing for comics. There's already been one wrinkle. I will point this out. Image Comics has already thrown in an objection to part of what was supposedly included in this auction. Once you win an auction, it still does have to go through several stages of sort of getting approved by banks and courts and stuff like that, and all parties involved. But Image specifically said, hey, Diamond said that this includes the rights to distribute our comics outside of the U.S. And we just want to say, we've got a clause in there that says we've got the right to approve, a new owner and stuff like that. So that just doesn't automatically come with the deal. Like, hey, and guess what? You can distribute Image Comics throughout Europe. Image is like, we will have a say in that. So, that said, maybe they will agree to these terms. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, Image has already thrown in like at least one wrinkle. There are still a bunch of parties that need to get paid off what they are owed by Diamond. This would mean Alliance is taking on that debt. So there's definitely a bunch of boring businessy things to get figured out. All I'm saying is that as far as somebody with the background and technology and physical assets to fulfill distribution, Alliance does seem ideally positioned for this opportunity. So that's a good thing. It's just that they also don't necessarily know comic books specifically yet. They know collectibles, but they don't know comic books. That's new to them. So the last thing I'll say here is that the chairman of the company, one of the co-founders, a guy named Bruce Ogilvie, he went on the Beyond Wednesdays show on YouTube this past week, and he explained a lot of stuff about who is Alliance, and he heard from retailers their concerns about comics. He's like, okay, this is a learning curve. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. This is something we have to do our due diligence and learn. I'm not pretending that we already know that. He did explain that the overall move is to diversify Alliance's portfolio. That's smart for any business. In other words, if they get comics and then 7 months from now, the bottom drops out of the vinyl record market, well, then the company can start leaning on other things that they do, like video games and now comic books. Sensible business. It's not putting all your eggs in one basket. Hey, it's nice to see my sister. Hey, Jeannie, thanks for dropping in. As someone who has received an LP with a crinkled corner in the sleeve today, knowing they know how to ship vinyl is encouraging. I would think so. That is not what Alliance would want to do, Derek. What Derek is saying is what if they saddle the entity, Diamond, with debt, sort of leave it as a business and put all sorts of debt on it, but take away and sell off the individual assets. That is not what a company like Alliance is looking to do, because they have done similar moves in the last several years of buying related distribution chains. they're expanding their operations and diversifying their business interests. The thing you're talking about is what like a venture capitalist type firm would do, where people that have bought things like Toys R Us and then they just sold off various assets and like left the core entity saddled with debt and kill it off. It's terrible. But this isn't what they're looking to do, I don't think. I just wanted to mention, he did express some doubt when they on this show, Bruce did, about whether he would be continuing something like Free Comic Book Day. If you're not clear, Free Comic Book Day was started by Diamond. The idea was a net boon to comic book stores, and I get that. Diamond needs healthy comic book stores to have a healthy business. But Bruce just said, hey, we're possibly going to be a little more ruthless. Like, something needs to show that there's a bottom line profit for us to continue with it. So we'll see. Maybe Free Comic Book Day has expanded to be bigger than just one distribution company. Maybe Marvel and DC and Image and Dark Horse and Boom and IDW and Dynamite all want to do this thing. Or maybe it's had its day and it might sort of go away. That I don't know. I'm just saying it's a question mark. Got to keep Free Comic Book Day. I love Free Comic Book Day. I think it's awesome. Nothing about this sounds good. I don't know. That's interesting, Dave. I really value your opinion. I think you're smart about keeping up to date with the news and comic book moves. I'm surprised you don't think anything about it sounds good because, look, all the big players basically have gone to Lunar and Penguin Random House. So this company is going to have to prove itself to get that business back. But I think that they're actually positioned quite well to potentially distribute comics efficiently. They have the warehouses already. They're not having to buy new warehouses. They have existing software technology. They have something like 325,000 different items that they keep in stock and are able to pick from. Comics is like a blip on that. So like their software can handle this. To me, it sounds promising. It's something I'd love to have a conversation. Maybe next time we get comics together, we can talk about it and I can hear some concerns. I don't know. Look, just to be clear, folks, there's always like a super tiny chance that somehow the deal doesn't go through, okay? Even though they won the bid, it's going to go through. But I'm just saying, we don't know exactly what's coming yet. We don't know what's happening yet. I'd never heard of this company before. I read up on them. They've got a solid, proven track record for being a distributor and working efficiently. And they focus on some very delicate collectibles, so I think that they would understand how to ship that well. I hear a lot of corporate speak, and where we are in 2025, nothing corporate speak sounds positive. I can understand that concern. I do. I mean, I ultimately am attracted to comics because of the art, because of the medium. But just being realistic, of course, it is a business as well. I want it to do well so that the more artsy, independent stuff has a good home. But first, you have to have a functioning business. And obviously, Diamond did not. So I'm willing to let anybody else take a chance. Because it's either this or nothing right now. So, we've got Lunar. We've got Penguin Random House. We've got a few other small players in the indie field that have stepped up. I'm very curious to see what happens. And if it becomes a net benefit to comics. Sorry, look at that. Pokemon Company International filed an objection. Yeah. Well, a lot of people are contesting the exact amounts that they're owed by Diamond. So that needs to be ironed out. They owe a lot to companies like Bandai, Hasbro, Marvel. They owe a lot. So, yeah. It's true. There used to be a ton of distributors. And honestly, a lot of them were more regional instead of like national and global. I'll just give you a super quick breakdown. in the 90s, Marvel bought a distributor, and that caused all sorts of other players to go exclusive. And the net result was there wasn't enough business after the 90s boom just like cratered. And a lot of these companies started like failing. Diamond bought them all up. They ended up being the only real player left in the business. But following the pandemic, a couple other people got involved, and it's a very different field right now. And, you know, it is more the businessy stuff. I'm going to talk in a minute about more comic book stories and artists, like for the news. But this could be sort of like both the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, and I'm curious to follow them. Who are they going to distribute? Dynamite? There's no reason to think that if Alliance can prove that they do a good job, that places like Image or Dark Horse could come back to this company. There's no reason to think that, Distillery isn't like 100%, but they're newer. Like, what if somebody like a new Distillery came to them? What if some of the indie places like Cosmic Lion went to them? It'll be interesting. It will be interesting to people that are fascinated with the business side of comics. I'm going to move forward. I guess I'm tentatively hopeful. But of course, they will need to prove that they do learn what makes comics special and unique and can work with stores to make this work. I'm just saying I'm tentatively hopeful. We'll see. I end each news bit a lot with, we'll see. Moving on. And today is no exception. We'll see. Moving on. Speaking of distribution stuff, Distillery just announced that they're going with Penguin Random House for distribution. So this happened today. One interesting thing to note about this, it's a non-exclusive agreement, which means that like right now they've got an agreement with Penguin to distribute their books, but they could also use other places if they wanted. Penguin Random House has declined working with publishers bigger than Distillery. But one thing that Distillery has going for it, beyond the big creator names in it, is that last year in August, you may remember this, they got a $5 million investment from a small number of big companies. Among them was Kodansha, a huge manga publisher in Japan, as well as a few other entertainment businesses. That's an indication that Distillery is poised to grow because they're new, they've got good creators, and they got a big investment from other companies. So that may have been, in my opinion, why Penguin Random House was like, yeah, we'll start doing business with you now because we think you're going to grow, and that will make it worth our while. The deal will begin in June. You know, I just try to pick the things that are like most interesting and then just like riff on it. So Distillery joins. Who does Penguin Random House have? Marvel. They've got Dark Horse. They've got IDW. And, of course, they've got Boom. But that's because Penguin Random House literally bought Boom. So, of course, they distribute them. Distillery had been with Lunar, and then they went back, I guess, to Diamond just before Diamond declared its bankruptcy. So really bad timing there. Oh, yeah, Penguin Random House has like half and Lunar has half, I would say, roughly. Hey, Brunson. Oh, by the way, Brunson's comic book Ghost Man is out on comic book store shelves anywhere good indie comics are stocked. But yeah, Penguin Random House has a good portfolio of comic book business right now. This is more indie. There's an indie comics figures Kickstarter. This is actually Wave 2. So maybe some of you have seen Longbox Heroes before, but it's from a toy manufacturer called Fresh Monkey Fiction. They've got a designer called Toy Otter. And anyway, it's retro styled. You know, it's limited articulation, but just a physical toy for your favorite indie thing. 4.5 inches tall, just a little bit taller than, say, like the G.I. Joes in the 80s. 7 points of articulation. I believe it's knees, hips, shoulders, and head. So this time around, there are characters based on the Tick from Ben Edlund. We've got Radioactive Tick and Arthur. We've got stuff by Matt Wagner, like Kevin Matchstick from Mage. We've got Grendel Prime and the Christine Spear version of Grendel. There have been many Grendels over the years. Rocketeer, Dave Stevens' Rocketeer, and Betty, his girlfriend. We've got both Savage Dragon and Malcolm Dragon, his son, from Eric Larson. And over here, Hallowfire by Tim Seeley. The first wave of long box heroes did have the Tim Seeley character Hack and Slash. They had other Tick figures. They had Madman, Mr. Monster. It's fun. You'd get them if they were 6. They're also coming out with a fully articulated 1/12 Tick figure. Oh, that is news to me. I did not see that. Dude, I think that the Savage Dragon is very cool. I think that the Grendels look very cool. Sometimes, you know, if it's just your favorite character, it's nice to just have on a shelf. You're just like, yeah, that looks cool, you know? Honk if you love justice. Oh, cool. You got the Madman ones. There were like 3 of them, right? Well, you say Dynamite Thor, and I just want to say, since this is a Kickstarter, there are stretch goals where if they reach certain amounts of funding, there are more characters that they will make, and some of those are public domain characters from the Golden Age. So not Dynamite Thor, but related. It just means that something like Dynamite Thor could be possible if this line keeps doing well. Yeah, he does have a bat there. He does have a bat. Good question. Dude, the Rocketeer's helmet is gorgeous. Dave Stevens really had something special. It's too bad that, you know, we lost him so young. The Rocketeer is fantastic. So anyway, pretty simple tiers. This is not like that Stan Lee documentary that had something like 65 tiers, none of which included a copy of the movie. No, they're just selling each figure that you'd want. That's a tier. You can just choose that figure. It's $25. This is, you know, like limited quantities. This isn't anyway. And you get a discount if you buy them all. It's $275. There's the link if you want to freeze it and check it out later, or you could probably Google. Yeah, that weird Stan Lee documentary that I talked about, I want to say 2 weeks ago on this show, has like, I'm pretty sure I'm right that it was 65 tiers. I've never seen anything like it. Wow, that's so cool. I didn't know that she sort of made the rounds in the comic book world like that. That's really cool that you got to meet her. That's lovely, EJ. That's lovely. That's an interesting question. Will the documentary got made? Tell you what, let's look at. I'm going to look at what the funding is on that weird Kickstarter, because we got to be getting close to the end of it, right? Stanley yeah, the final chapter, it's called. Hold on. We've got 10 days to go, and it has raised almost $82,000, but its minimum goal, or it doesn't get funded, is $300,000. So over 20 days, they haven't quite even hit a third of the goal. So look, it'll probably come out, folks. It'll probably come out, because why do you need $300,000 when you've already got all the footage? You know, that's crazy to me. But it does not seem like it's going to even come close to hitting its goal. Since the Backlash came out, it's only made $15,000. Yeah. Kickstarters do very well at the very beginning and the very, very end. And if you're going to hit your goal, it needs to do pretty well in the middle. But like, there's always big flurries of activity at either end. Dave Stevens' sister is handling the Rocketeer IP now, as far as I know. You might want to get her on the show or something. Hey, maybe. And, if you ever want to come on the show, EJ, if you want to, you all have an open invite. I know you've got Blood and Thunder coming out. I'm pretty sure you've got a Pacific Rim comic coming out soon. Anyway, so just letting you know. Just talking about investments, because that was a Kickstarter. Look at this. I've almost laid it out as though there's natural segues. I just don't have anything clever to say as a segue. Oh, well. Skybound has launched a private investment program. It's kind of a weird one, though, to me, but they'll probably raise plenty of money. Skybound is looking for private investments, kind of like they did back in 2022. They did that through some crowdfunding mechanism. I don't remember exactly what they were called, maybe like Revolutionary or something like that. But they raised $18 million that way, and they're basically doing something like that now. If you go to the Skybound site, they've got a dedicated page for this. You may have seen these ads in your socials. I've seen this ad like on every social site that I use. So I don't know if you guys have or not. It's definitely targeting me, but that makes sense. Some of the figures that the Skybound site mentions, it is impressive. They talk about how Walking Dead has become a $10 billion business. It's just such a popular cable show and all the related merchandise from it. Invincible, they say, is the biggest revenue generating show on Amazon right now. So I guess that's just the balance of what it costs to make versus how many people watch it. That's impressive. And that makes sense because what did they spend to do that crazy Lord of the Rings show? That's something like $1 billion or something. Oh, it's wild. Anyway, they also mentioned how they doubled their comic book business itself from 2023 to 2024 with 4.5 million comics. Now, that said, are they going to do that again next year? I would say probably not. They had the debuts of Transformers and G.I. Joe, which did very well and continue to perform very, very well. But, that initial printing for issue 1 plus all the reprints, that bumps things way up. But it's still very impressive. I will say that. Now, it's worth noting that to invest in this is not really stock. Like when you go on the stock market or you invest in mutual funds that are a mix of stocks. That's not what this is. I want to make that much clear to everybody. Because it's not a public offering. What they're calling it is they're calling it equity crowdfunding investment in a startup. So I don't know the ins and outs of what exactly that means. I don't know who regulates any of this stuff or what, so if you want to invest in Skybound, all I'm saying is please do your own research. I am not endorsing this. I'm not condemning it. I'm mentioning it because it's all over the news. They've got something like 6 more days. Yeah, oil futures for nerds. That's one way of looking at it. Yes, that's true. Snake Eyes has not debuted yet. The most popular G.I. Joe. $10 billion, not $1 billion. $10 billion. And I'm sorry you don't like it. I like The Walking Dead generally. I haven't finished that show. I did pause, and I need to sort of binge the last couple seasons. I love the comic. I do love the comic. I like a lot of the actors on it. I like the look of it too. So some of the things that they list on the website, you can see this yourself, but I just thought this was kind of interesting. They listed revenue of $96.4 million for 2023. Now, that is down a bit from making over $100 million in revenue in 2022, but it's up a lot from 2020 when they started at $42.8 million in revenue. So they really are growing. They really do seem to be. Net income, however, revenue is one thing, how much money they've brought in, but how much is that in income after you like expense things out? Net income does show a loss of $6.9 million in 2023. We'll compare that to 2022. They made a profit of nearly $22 million. So I would guess, and I don't know this for a fact, I would just guess that in 2023, they laid out a lot of capital for things like the rights to Energon Universe books, starting various video games, and possibly Hollywood productions. So they probably, it went to things like that. Anyway. Yeah, Walking Dead was funded. The show was funded by AMC. You're right that they are a little cheap. However, by season 2 or something, when they started seeing like the ratings for it, they did open up their purse strings quite a bit more. Just wanted to mention that. You may have come across this if you aren't dead, but if you're not chronically plugged in to comic book social media, it's also understandable if you did not see this. But the MCU announced the cast for Avengers Doomsday. I don't think they announced all of them, but boy, did they announce a lot. Thursday, Marvel put out a trailer. They said Avengers Doomsday is actually in production right now. And then they had, those, I don't know the official term for them, but these chairs that actors and directors get to sit in on set. I don't know. There's got to be a name for those chairs, but I don't know what it is. Listen to these people that are confirmed to be in it. Chris Hemsworth, Thor. I'll just go with the superhero name, and you can read it if you care about the actor's name. Thor, Invisible Woman, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Black Panther, Ant-Man, U.S. Agent, Namor. Remember, this is the MCU, so we don't get to call him Namor. Thing, Shang-Chi, Yelena, Beast, Sentry, Falcon, Human Torch, Red Guardian, M'Baku, Ghost, Loki, yes please, Professor X, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Mystique, Cyclops, Gambit, Mr. Fantastic, and of course Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. So that is a lot. However, yeah, mutants confirmed. And I mean, technically, we have been able to see a lot of these in MCU movies, right? We've seen Gambit, Professor X, who else? Beast. We've seen them all in various MCU movies. And this is, the multiverse. So there's going to be variants of all these characters. Well, I would say it doesn't necessarily confirm that, Owen, just because they could be being a little sneaky here. Remember, multiverse, variants. These could be versions from another, for all we know, like what if they had the Thunderbolts, but Doctor Doom is running them and they're all bad guys from another parallel world? I don't think anything like that is remotely off the table. So I don't know if it really spoils too much to know some of these characters. I really don't, because as soon as you say multiverse, it doesn't have to be that they're the main characters. They're not all Avengers, they're just in the movie. I don't know who the Avengers themselves will be. I suspect a bunch of these characters, I bet the X-Men won't be Avengers, right? They'll just be themselves doing something or other on their world. That's my suspicion. Dolph Lundgren Punisher. Hey, he's beaten cancer. He looks pretty healthy. I would take Dolph Lundgren back as a Punisher or a Punisher variant. So we'll see. Let's see. There were several names I noted that were not there, though. Because didn't we already know that Chris Evans had been signed to this movie? And there's no Tom Holland, Spider-Man? Like, come on. They're not going to include Tom Holland? What about Benedict Cumberbatch or Mark Ruffalo? Doctor Strange or Hulk? Seems like, maybe they're not. And they're in the next Avengers movie, right? Maybe. Just seems like pretty important characters. So, dude, if they want to go variant crazy and just give like little cameos of like 3 Hulks and 4 Punishers or something, I'm all for it. I am down. Well, I guess they couldn't do all the Punishers. Sorry, I just made myself sad realizing Ray Stevenson isn't with us anymore. He was a good Punisher, in my opinion. I think maybe I can convince Jim to do that one at some point on Trash Movie Bonanza. I think Punisher Warzone is a pretty enjoyable movie. I would take Nick Cage's Ghost Rider. Ooh, Eric Bana as the Maestro, a different version of the Hulk. That's a cool idea. Yeah, I will be in there. They didn't show my chair yet, but I am playing Paste Pot Pete. It's not a huge role. I only have 25 minutes of screen time. Anyway. Pretty crazy, though. Look, that's so many characters. You have to imagine a bunch of them are pretty small roles. Mortal Kombat Annihilation, that is a bad movie. Maybe. That is a bad movie. Moving on. Still in the realm of adaptation stuff, Peacemaker Season 2. 2 little updates on that. One, actress Danielle Brooks, she played Leota Adebayo, who is the, well, it doesn't matter who she is. She's one of the cast members of Peacemaker. She's also the actress in the Minecraft movie that's coming out, which I haven't really followed at all. Is that going to be good or garbage? I really wouldn't know. Anyway, she did mention that season 2 of Peacemaker will have a completely new dance sequence as the opening. And I don't think that's a surprise because that dance involved a bunch of characters that just will not be in season 2. So of course they have to make a new intro. Face front, true believers. Ever wonder what it would be like to look at a multiverse of madness? It's probably not going to be good. I know. The Minecraft movie looks at present completely insane. Yeah, probably. Minecraft looks awful. Okay, I don't know what I was saying there. Nobody here is excited for Minecraft. That's fair. The other thing I have to say about Peacemaker, like, why did I include this image here, right? Well, singer Bray Noel, I don't know who that is, but on Instagram, she said that she's going to play the Batman villain White Rabbit in season 2 of Peacemaker. I don't know if that's an important role or just a tiny cameo, because I don't know how big a celebrity Bray Noel is. I don't know. More like Minecraft. Oh, kids probably came up with that like 20 years ago, and it was a cutting edge joke. How long has Minecraft been around, actually? Because I definitely had an era where my friends and I would veg out creating just cool worlds in Minecraft. But I want to say that was like 8 years ago. Minecraft has been around a long time. It is a pretty chill game, though. It is a pretty chill game. The most exciting thing about Minecraft is Jason Momoa almost leaking his Lobo design. That was funny. If you guys don't know, like, Jason Momoa was doing one of those press junkets where, you know, like 100 different TV stations and radio stations each come in and get to ask the cast like 2 or 3 questions. And Jason Momoa goes, "Oh, you want to see what I look like for Lobo?" And he runs over and he gets his phone. And his publicist is like, "I wouldn't do that, Jason." He's like, "Oh, yeah, you're probably right." He almost showed it, though. 2009, 2008. Got it. Wow, that is a long-running game that like is still quite popular, I would say. That's amazing. Yeah, you would think so, but think about it. If it's been going since like 2009 or something, lots of people will have grown up with it. So that sort of makes sense. There have been a few other games that I've gone back to that like have been like kept running, Grand Theft Auto. In a way, I'm tempted to go back to Minecraft. Forget the movies. Like I'm tempted to go back and build something. I never played City of Heroes. I'm going to go to some more news. The Red Sonja movie got distribution, and I like the character of Red Sonja. I want to see what that is. Samuel Goldwyn Films. They picked up the U.S. distribution rights to Red Sonja. It says that they've got an eye to distribute it in actual theaters this year. I mean, it is the kind of thing it might end up going to streaming these days, you know? But I want to see it. It's directed by M.J. Bassett, who's primarily a TV director. Has worked on Ash vs. Evil Dead, though, and I love that show. And it's starring Matilda Lutz. I haven't seen her in anything. I know she was in that Daisy Ridley movie Magpie, but that's all I know. Sorry. I hope it's cool. It could be very badass. Not gonna lie, I forgot they were making a Red Sonja movie. She looks awesome as Sonja. I think that that's a very good adaptation of, you know, the sort of bikini armor, and that looks a little bit more like actual armor. It's good. The movie description reads that Red Sonja must battle her way through the blood-soaked pits of a tyrant's empire and rally an army of outcasts to reclaim her freedom and take down Dragon and his ruthless bride, Dark Anicia, implying that there's a Anicia out there. Yeah, this is filmed already, and now it's got a distributor. So hopefully it's good. You know, hopefully it's at least fun. I don't know. I have not read lots of Red Sonja comics. Of course I've read some. It's a character that's been around for a long time. I've read the Marvel version. I've read some Dark Horse stuff. But I have to admit that, like, this plot, it didn't ring a bell. And I didn't have time to, like, look it up. But so I'm curious, does anyone out there know, is, like, Dragon and Dark Anicia, is that from a certain run? I would imagine it's from a comic book run, but technically it could be original. Probably not if you've seen what Bridget Nielsen looks like these days. We'll see. I mean, I'll watch any comic book movie just to see what they do with it. So I'll see it no matter what. I mean, if I'm going to see Kraven the Hunter and Madam Web, it would be a weird road to be like, no, Red Sonja is beneath me. I don't know if it's from Gail's run. It would make a lot of sense to me that they would look to Gail Simone's run to adapt, because that was kind of a high point and not that long ago. So there'd be some cultural recognition and some respect for, like, you know, the structure and the characters from the fans. But I don't know. Not really. Well, sort of. It's more complex than that. There was a version of a character called Red Sonja, spelled differently, in the Conan novels. And then there was, like, Marvel created, like, Red Sonja, and yes, like, she exists in the same world in the comics. She exists in the same world. But I'm talking about, like, the Marvel days. When they made the what gets confusing for people is that when they made the Red Sonja movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it, but he doesn't play Conan. He plays a different barbarian. And now, of course, Titan does Conan and Dynamite does Red Sonja, so kind of different. Will Red Sonja defeat the evil dragon with the crisp, refreshing taste of Pepsi Cola beverages? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Talk. I'm almost going to drink it, but actually I have a good point to say. That was something they did in Madam Web. Fair. My sister has my number. She's the best. But Red Sonja can be a very cool character. There's a documentary on the rise and decline of comic book shops. I somehow had missed this when it was originally crowdfunded last year. But anyway, a trailer came out for this documentary called Shopping for Superman. I thought that it looked really nice from the trailer. The movie covers the history of the rise and, in a lot of ways, decline of the comic book store. Which I think is a very valid topic to discuss, as long as they're giving all sides and not sort of like fudging any numbers. Like, it's a great bit of comic book history to discuss. It successfully raised its, in my opinion, very modest goal of $30,000 on Kickstarter last August, and it promises now to come out this year. The trailer description includes links to pre-order physical copies of the movie. So it's so weird. Like, on the one hand, we were talking earlier about the Stan Lee documentary, which wants to raise $300,000, and none of the reward tiers are to get a copy of the movie. This only raised $30,000, still has all sorts of experts and great footage of comic book stores and stuff, and looked really good to me, and you can actually buy a copy of the movie. Yeah, exactly. See, we're on the same page. It's like this Dave guy and I get along. We'll see. There's nothing that we'll see about that. I just wanted to say it. Marvel has revealed the identity of the all-new Venom. They've officially put out a press release today, folks. I know this is something all of you were like, I'm going out of my mind. Who is wearing the Venom symbiote? How am I expected to do any work when I don't know for a fact who's under that Venom costume? I can't live my life. So there were some leaks online. So Marvel just decided, the heck with it. We're going to just officially announce who the new Venom is. Al Ewing and Carlos Gomez started all new Venom just 4 months ago. And it was done with a mystery. There was a new Venom running around. Instead of like white spider symbol, it's gold. That can sell more action figures. And they teased that it could be a wide variety of different characters that exist in the Marvel Universe. Maybe it was villain Madam Mask. Maybe it's Mayor Luke Cage. Professional sidekick to superheroes Rick Jones. Spider-Man's boss, Robbie Robertson at the newspaper. Then they added Mary Jane Watson's boyfriend Paul as a potential. Well, turn away for the next couple of minutes if you just don't want to know who it is, but also like who cares and it's out there. Marvel confirmed the identity. Issue 5 is going to come out this Wednesday, just 2 days from when I'm recording this, and it will reveal, here we go. Yeah, it's Mary Jane Watson, who always actually like really hated the black costume because of the trauma that it put her and her husband through. But I guess if you've retroactively made her and Peter forget their marriage, maybe she forgot that trauma as well. She is a superhero these days. She's Jackpot, and now she's also Venom. So yeah, it's a lady. Ooh. I didn't see it coming. I don't know. Maybe you can do an interesting story with that. Seems like Mary Jane's been becoming a more and more important character. On the other hand, I think it's pretty weird that Peter's two most important girlfriends, Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson, are now both becoming superheroes. They're bringing Gwen Stacy back from the dead as Dark Gwenpool, and now Mary Jane Watson is Venom. Very strange to me. I really don't know what to say. I was sincerely hoping, because I like a lot of things that Al Ewing has written, I was hoping there would be a twist that I like that I was like, that's cool. My personal guess, I was going to guess that there was nobody wearing the Venom symbiote and the symbiote was acting on its own, which I thought would be an interesting development and sort of turn the symbiote into a full-fledged character on its own. I thought you could do that, but that's not the way they went. You're not watching enough of this show. That was news about like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah, Gwen Stacy is being brought back by, I don't know if it's like Hydra or AIM or what, but some supervillain scientific organization has brought Gwen Stacy back as a ninja, Dark Gwenpool. It does feel like you need a few more normal humans. I agree. If it was just wearing a guy's skeleton. Yeah, but they sort of did that with that one symbiote that like had arrived in like the Vietnam War era and was like pretending to be a dead soldier. I forget the name of that symbiote, but they sort of did that story. They really teased strongly that it was going to be one of these 4 people. Which one will it be? Well, it was none of them, so it does feel like a cheat. I think we just call it Venom. I think that the symbiote could be Venom by itself. I think that would be cool. I think it would be an evolution for the character and give you something new to do. Have it like really not be a symbiote anymore, be like a fully functioning entity. I would like that. It is some of the better art that Marvel is making right now. Yeah. And Aunt May Vernon? I would have thought, just to stay on topic, we would have had Aunt May Venom. But sure, Aunt May becomes Vernon. Why not? Uncle Vernon. I think it's time. Yeah, I think that Mary Jane likes Venom by Eminem. Remember that rap? I'm gonna move on. I was so surprised by this in a way, but Marvel has canceled Weapon X-Men. Essentially. I'll get into it. So Weapon X-Men, actually, like it's by writer Joe Casey, awesome. Artist Chris Cross, good artist. And it was originally announced as an ongoing team book in the X-Men universe. And look at the cast it had. It had Wolverine, Deadpool, Cable, as well as Chamber and Thunderbird. But Wolverine, Deadpool, and Cable, like, usually that is a recipe for success at Marvel, you know? The solicitations for issue 4 now say, they didn't originally say this, but they now say that it has been changed to a 5-issue miniseries. And then in his Substack newsletter, X-Men editor Tom Brevoort stated simply, quote, "Sometimes a book is slated to be an ongoing, but the support in the marketplace simply isn't there to allow for that. That was the case with Weapon X-Men." I'm surprised. Yeah, that's why I put that cover in there. That's the cover for issue 4. Red Ronin, a character that was created during Marvel's Godzilla run and still exists in their continuity. It's like a kaiju-sized giant robot. Red Ronin is awesome. So anyway, I was just sort of surprised that they could like have, you know, like a name writer, a name artist, and like 3 of their most popular X-Men characters, and that somehow that didn't connect. I don't know. It maybe all that means, this is just me wildly speculating, but maybe all that means is that there are just too many X titles if one with all those characters can't succeed. Absolutely agree. Blood Squad 7, that's awesome. I believe that there's a Jim Rugg variant cover coming out for issue 7 of that book that's going to also have Shadowhawk, Jim Valentino's Shadowhawk in it. So Blood Squad 7 is a great, great comic that I strongly recommend. I will talk about it tonight. I've got a bunch of comics to talk about, including Absolute Martian Manhunter. Dude, I'll just say this. It was the craziest, most like, I can't remember a week when I've bought this many comics. These were all comics that I bought in just a single week. Actually, just to be clear, there are two more that I got that I just don't know where I put. Ultimate Wolverine and Absolute Wonder Woman. But all of these were like comics that came out this week. It was such a crazy week for me for comics. I'm not going to have time to review all of them, but I have thoughts on a bunch of like important, like big stuff. So, yeah. And by the way, I hope you stay here, but I want to mention one thing. In about 4 minutes, Kyle Higgins is going to do a live stream where he breaks down the latest issue, Radiant Black, page by page. Sort of gives you a behind-the-scenes look on the Black Narrative YouTube site. I hope you stay with me, but if you want to watch me later and catch him live, I understand. I'll just plug that because he's a good guy. It was bonkers how many books, and I really, I'll talk about this a little bit more when I review the comics that came out this week or just do mini reviews, but it was so many that I go, boy, I need to find a way to cut back on what I'm reading. I want to stay abreast of the biggest books so that we can like talk about them, but this was just too big a week for me. It was just too big a week. I was like, ooh, I mean, I'll get all these, but that was a lot. I'll show it here. If for any reason when I end this show, his stream is still going, I'll jump on there and talk about it. Let me get back to the news. So, what else have we got for news? A few more things. This is fun. Hey, and you know what? This is a natural segue. This is a Kyle Higgins book. He does Radiant Black. He also is one of the writers of Spider-Verse versus Venomverse. And I've had to keep this a secret for a while because Kyle was kind enough to show me this. I'm a fan of Japanese Spider-Man. The live action, yeah, wow! That's the opening theme song. So good, so good. Marvel shared a new look at Takuya Yamashiro, the live action Spider-Man from Japan in the 70s. He had this device here on his wrist that could shoot spider string, but could also summon Marveler, who could change into Leopardon, a giant robot. That was awesome. Tokusatsu. Yeah, wow! So, this is designed by Luciano Vecchio, and the change was made for a good reason. It's a crossover with a bunch of Spider-Mans and a bunch of Venoms. Well, how do you make it look visually different? Because otherwise, like originally, he looked like Peter Parker's Spider-Man. He had the same suit plus this bracelet thing. So they were like, well, let's think of a way to make him look different. Like, what if he updated his costume? And so they, Luciano looked at a bunch of tokusatsu stuff. Kamen Rider, for instance. You could see that influence in the scarf. And that makes sense because this Spider-Man was a motocross rider, And, just changes up the colors a little bit, gives him the dark lenses like you see on a lot of Super Sentai masks. Still has poses here like the live action one does. I love it. I think it's really cool. This is that same Spider-Man. I don't know about the mech. I didn't ask. There was. It's not there anymore. I'll just mention this since Black Phoenix mentions it. For a while on Disney Plus, there was a great documentary series about various parts of Marvel history, and they had an incredible episode about the 1970s live-action Spider-Man show from Japan, but they've pulled it. You can't find it anywhere. It's one of the things that I don't like about streaming versus owning physical media. So frustrating, because that was a great documentary. So this art of the Emissary of Hell, that's what this Spider-Man would call himself. It'll appear on issue 3, and the comic is by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom, and art inside by Jim Toe. So, yeah. I wanted to plug that because I think this is a great design. And I guess I don't have anything else to say. I think it makes sense to make this change so that visually the characters in this book you can tell apart. I mean, that's still clearly Spider-Man, but I like the homages to various, Japanese superhero TV shows. I like it. Marvel released a trailer this week for Cosmic Invasion. What is that? So, after the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which my wife got for me at some point, she's awesome, publisher Dotemu and developer Tribute Games have revealed their next game, Marvel Cosmic Invasion. It's an arcade-style, side-scrolling, traditional beat-em-up game, just like the ones I grew up with anyway. The Simpsons, Ninja Turtles, X-Men, and the enemy is Annihilus and his Annihilation Wave from the original Annihilation miniseries, which was very good, by the way. The initial roster of superheroes you can play as includes Captain America, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Storm, Phyla-Vell, Venom, and Nova. You get to choose 2 characters at a time, and they can tag out so that you can use different abilities in different fights and team-up abilities. It's scheduled for both PC and all the consoles the end of this year. Looks like a fun game. Yeah, exactly. Hold on. Which Venom? Probably not Mary Jane, because if we really look at this, I feel like it has sort of late 80s, early 90s sensibilities. Storm's costume, Wolverine's costume, just including like somebody like Venom there. That speaks to like sort of the 90s to me. Whoa, I made some money tonight. Thank you, Jack Ferry. If you get caught between the moon and New York City, the best that you can do is fall in love. It's by Christopher Cross, Yacht Rock's own Christopher Cross. Earlier we were talking about news about artist Chris Cross. Thank you, Jack. I think this looks fun, man. I love side-scrolling beat-em-up arcade games. It probably is also a game that's not going to cost like $70. It'll probably be more like $30. It's awesome. DC has extended Absolute Martian Manhunter. Only the first issue has come out this week, but apparently did quite well. So, Absolute Martian Manhunter is by writer Dennis Camp and artist Javier Rodriguez. It was originally solicited to only be a 6-issue miniseries, but it has now been extended to at least 12 issues. DC sent out solicitations for issue 2 to retailers, and they said, quote, Absolute Martian Manhunter number 2, now an ongoing series. Due to the incredible reception thus far, DC announces that Absolute Martian Manhunter, originally solicited for 6 issues, has now been extended to a 12-issue series. Always nice to balance books that are getting canceled with seeing a positive response to a book. And Dennis Camp has really been impressing me because I really like The Ultimates. I think that's a great superhero book right now. And I'll get into talking about this book in just a few more minutes. Yeah. I'm glad this book got extended as I just finished reading issue 1, and I thought it was phenomenal. So cool we're getting more of it. Dennis Camp is impressive. And you know what? I really shouldn't downplay the art by Javier Rodriguez. He's doing it all. And we'll talk about that because it's the pencils, it's the inks, it's the colors. Ooh, the colors. I would love 100 likes tonight. That would be lovely. So, there's a few more cool pieces here. Another cool thing, I think, is that DC apparently is planning on bringing back the Legion of Superheroes. The Legion of Superheroes can be awesome. It's a bunch of superheroes set in the far future, and they can just do all sorts of cool sci-fi ideas. There's a wide variety of powers, and can be like all sorts of weird conflicts. You could talk about technology, government, society, nature, all sorts of amazing things because it's set in the future. Oh, well, that will count. Thank you. We're good to go, folks. So, the Legion of Superheroes has not been a big part of DC Comics for a while now. The last series they had only ran 12 issues. That was back in 2020. It's already 5 years. There was also a 23-issue run before that, but that goes all the way back 2011 to 2013. Not even a 2 full year run, really. It's been a while since it's been an ongoing popular title. It's really since about the 90s. At LA WonderCon, Mark Waid was on a panel, and he said that the Legion would return to DC soon. No specifics beyond that, but soon. And he added that the team DC has chosen to use is going to be one that he's confident everyone will embrace. There have been different iterations, but so this is not going to be the most recent sort of thing that was used, like Rebirth Era or something called Omega Legion, I want to say it was called. It's not going to be that. Sometimes it's been that. I got into them as a kid. Was there a Legion of Superheroes cartoon? All right, that I didn't know about, Daniel. So that just shows my age, I guess. Yes, he really did. Jim Shooter added a lot to the Legion of Superheroes. Originally written by Otto Binder, who wrote tons of great comics, both like Superboy, Captain Marvel, all sorts of great stuff by Otto Binder. It was created back in like 1958, and I can't remember the artist right now is all. I can't. I'm sorry. I should be able to, but I can't. But that's all I got to say about that. So that's coming soon. And I just decided to include a really old version of the Legion there. Grant Morrison, oops, I covered it up. He's returning to, they're returning to superheroes. So comic creators Grant Morrison and Etienne Cuboabo, I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm afraid. Both from Scotland, though. Going to make a superhero book called Worlds Collide this year. It unites characters that they each created with art by Ben Wilsonham. Grant's first comic creation, this is going all the way back to Grant's beginnings, was a local superhero called Captain Clyde. And Etienne created DJET, which was the first Black Scott superhero. This was announced on Grant's Substack newsletter. No word beyond this of like an exact time frame, how many pages, the plot, or whether we're intending this for print or probably the Substack newsletter. I don't know. But it's Grant Morrison, and that's always reason to at least be curious. Or be bi-curious. Omega is the absolute Legion. Is that what it is? Yeah, right. It was done for the All In initiative, not Rebirth. All In. Excuse me. But I don't think it's going to be that. Thank you. Yes, the Omega Legion was the bad Legion. Excuse me. Right. NASA deleted some comics about how women can become astronauts. Oh, this bothers me. 2021, NASA issued the first of 2 interactive comic books that they created. It was called First Woman, Dream to Reality. And it depicted young women dreaming of and then training to become astronauts. It was for a future that was the so-called Artemis generation in the story. Cool. It's just a hopeful thing to get kids interested in science. All right. NASA then issued a second graphic novel, and which to me indicates that there was a good response to it. That came out in November of 23. But this week, NASA has removed all evidence of the two comics from their platforms as part of the ongoing U.S. federal government initiative to purge anything related to diversity or women. That is just a real thing that we are dealing with. And in fact, this has happened. This happened to my wife. My wife is a graphic designer and an artist and a painter. And I won't give all the details, but she works for a company whose clients have traditionally been government agencies, we'll say, like the EPA and FEMA and stuff like that. And she created a lot of things for them, which included games and comic books, interactive websites, to get kids interested in understanding important things about, like, for instance, energy conservation or protecting nature, things like that. All of those pages and pieces of art and stories and games that she's created have all been pulled off of the websites. And she's actually furloughed right now, so she's not working right now. So we have been impacted by these decisions right now, and it's frustrating, because I feel like I love certain things. I think that science, for science's sake, is awesome. In the same way that, like, the idea at the core of the Olympics is awesome. I love the idea of people pushing themselves to their physical and mental limits, and to see, like, to explore, and to learn new things and do incredible things. And I think that, like, astronauts are just awesome. I thought that they were awesome since I was a kid. I still think they're awesome. They're going up there to learn things to better humanity. And I loved that this was, like, an initiative that got kids into something science related through my favorite artistic medium, comic books. I will just say that it is not the CIA that she works for. Yeah. So I love science like Jesse Pinkman loved magnets. So anyway, just really, really frustrating to me. When you've already created it and it costs next to nothing to host it, it just feels like there's no point. Anyway, if you are super curious about this, I'll just say, because nobody was really going to enforce this, like in terms of copyright, like, it has been uploaded to places like, I want to say, the Internet Archive, and maybe like some sort of like wiki. So you can still find PDFs of this out there, but you're not going to find it on the NASA websites. So, yeah. Moving over to something positive again. I'm going to talk about CBS looking to adapt a manga. CBS Studios and actor Masi Oka, who you may remember from Heroes. Apparently, he was also a cast member on Hawaii Five-0. They're working together to develop a live-action television version of the dark fantasy manga series Claymore. And they're doing that in partnership with the publisher of the manga, Shueisha. Yes, very petty. I agree with you. I agree. This manga, if you haven't read it, it's written and illustrated by Norihiro Yagi, and Claymore is set in a medieval-style world where humans are being preyed upon by shape-shifting predators that are called the Yoma. And the survival of mankind depends on female warriors that are known as Claymores. Anyway, CBS wants to make a live-action adaptation of it. Seems to me that it would have to have something like a budget close to something like a Game of Thrones to do it justice. We'll see if that happens or not. I remember the dude beside me ignoring class to watch episodes of Claymore on YouTube. Dow says Claymore is so damn good. I don't think so. I mean, they all the news articles like really emphasized, hey, dark fantasy, medieval, things like that. So I don't think so. I think that they already did an animated adaptation, to be clear. So very different. I don't know. I think CBS probably is thinking, hey, we need to make a couple shows that appeal to younger people, keep our audience young. It can't all just be like retirees watching our fictionalized crime shows. So that's probably what they're thinking of. Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah. Hajime no Ippo, a good boxing story. That could be cool. It's a good idea. NCIS is NCIS still going? I've never watched it, but there is a clip from NCIS that I have seen, and my friend and I reference it all the time. I don't know any of the characters' names, okay, but basically they're all at their headquarters or something, and there's a tech girl saying like, "Oh my God, we're being hacked," and then like another guy goes, have they, breached the firewall? And they both get on the same keyboard at the same time because they're each trying to lock out somebody that's trying to break in. And that just makes me laugh so hard that two people are sharing the same computer, as though that can speed up how they fight this intrusive hacker. Oh my God, it's the funniest thing I've seen in my life. I don't know if it was intentionally funny, because now that I think of it, I've never watched the show. Maybe is it a comedy sometimes? Or was that just like an old man going like, well, one person on a computer can go this fast, and a second person on a computer should be able to double the efficiency. Kids today love NCIS. They always go around acting out stuff like the tall guy. There's a girl too with the brown hair, and I'm the older dude. Kids love. Oh, you're being sarcastic. It took me a minute. Ah, so good. Last piece of news I'll have, and then we'll look at some comics because there were a lot. Becky Burke. We talked a lot about her being detained by ICE. Well, this is some of her art, and of course, she's turning her experience into a comic. R.E. Burke, known to friends as Becky, has started posting studies of her time in an ICE detention facility to her Instagram. She's got pictures of the people that she met. She's got like a diagram of the cell that she had to live in for 3 weeks. The art includes other women who were inmates there. And she said that she's going to make a comic that details her 3-week stay there, as well as the stories of the women that she would talk to every day. So I think that could be a really interesting story. I don't know anything about what it's like to be in a detention facility. So that sounds like a really interesting comic book idea. So these are just more studies than like intended to be fully finished art. But at the same time, we can look at it and go like, wow, that is, I guess that there could be a simpler sort of prison, but there's not much there. Not a lot of space, not a lot of anything. And the bathroom is right there. So no privacy. That is rough. That is really, really rough. Oh, yeah. I don't think that this is going to do them any favors. I think that this comic will be very interesting to a lot of people. I will support anything by Becky Burke just to try and offset this horrible situation. Yeah, she's home now, just to be clear. If you haven't been following the news, she is home. So, 3 weeks not knowing why you're in prison or when they'll let you go. If you don't know when you're getting out, it must be so much worse. So much worse. Let me turn on my camera so that I can go over some of the comics that came out this week. gonna shift some things about, and we'll get into some comic stuff. Let me add a camera. Sorry, I was just looking for what thing I want to open up. Let's do it like this. I'm going to turn on a light here and move this over and zoom out a little bit. There we go. I don't know if she was allowed to draw while detained. The stuff she's showing now, she says she's doing right now at home, like trying to remember all the details. So I don't know if she was allowed to draw it all there. Batman. Hey, Mark Spears. You've got a few popular covers out there. Lovely to have you on the audience there. Well, I will say that I think the thing that I like the most of Batman Hush 2 is the art. By the way, did everybody get this with their copy, or is it just my comic book store? They included a Chapter 2 preview ash can, which I really like just because I really do like looking at Jim Lee's artwork in black and white. I think that looks really nice. Look at that. Working with like what looks like some ink washes for something like this, for then the color to hey, Stepan, thank you. Yeah, an ash can. No, I didn't get one. Okay. I mean, I had to pick this up because it was going to be, this is a big deal. Jim Lee working on a comic is always going to be a big deal. I just thought that looked really interesting to like look at the artwork by Jim Lee and I assume Scott Williams. Yeah, Scott Williams on inks. You can kind of tell, but yeah, these panels that are in sort of this ink wash, I appreciate this because Jim Lee definitely has his style and his way of doing art, and he's very efficient and it's very cool looking. But I like that Jim Lee does still try a few new things every once in a while. I think that is the biggest challenge when you're doing comic books, sort of working on deadlines. It can be very hard to experiment. And it can be like very like unrewarding to experiment because, like what if you even do something very different and then you don't know for, several weeks as to like how it got like accepted, but you might have already had to start work on the next issue. And, it's really a big decision to evolve your art and try new things. So I just want to say that I do appreciate getting to see some of this stuff like that. I appreciate that. I'm trying to focus initially on the good because I'll be honest, I didn't love this issue. The story is just sort of whatever. I don't know. What even can I say about it? We've got Batman not really going up against the Joker. Instead, the Joker gets kidnapped by this strong guy from, I don't know, we'll say Hawaii? I have no idea. Boy, that's glossy. I cannot show that to you guys very well without it getting reflective or blurry. The black and white ash can is great. Yeah, that would be prison. I get it, EJ. I get it. Silence is his name. That's right. They did tell me that. See, I'm already forgetting details from it. I did not find this super memorable. I don't know. Hush, the Batman villain, who I don't remember super well because Hush was kind of a long time ago now. I mean, I remember that it was Tommy Elliott, Bruce Wayne's friend from childhood. He's a surgeon, and I guess he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I'm pretty sure that he always knew that. Yeah, I don't really remember the story in the first one. But the first one was more like an excuse to show all the Batman allies and all the Batman villains done by Jim Lee, right? Like that was kind of its point. And then they threw in like a new villain. Sure. Well, in this, Hush just absolutely brutalizes the Joker. It's not like I feel bad for the Joker getting tortured. I mean, he's done so many horrible things. It's like I just can't have any sympathy for him. I also think this is kind of funny. So at the beginning of this, Joker hits Batman in the head and knocks him into the water full of piranhas. And the piranhas attack Batman. Now, I'll go with that because while like real piranha probably wouldn't do that, these have been like, fed some sort of weird Joker drug. So, okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with that. But here's what's funny. Batman basically sort of gets saved by accident, it seems like. His helmet like has like an electric jolt power. That's an interesting sort of gimmick. Boy, I really cannot get it to focus, folks. Sorry. And he jolts all the fish dead. I don't know. Batman sort of investigates what Joker was doing and finds out that Joker was kidnapped and stuff. It's an excuse for a bunch of action shots. And that's fine. I also don't mind that, like, because Batman's previous costume was sort of like chewed up by the piranha, he goes into a slightly more old school one. I love seeing the yellow oval design come back, but I would have also liked to have seen some blue. Maybe that's just because I grew up in an era when Jim Aparo was the Batman artist, and I like the gray and blue. I think it looks good on comics. I don't know. I guess it's a mystery, but it doesn't really... Not much happens, to be honest, in this first issue. Not a whole lot happens. Joker gets tortured, and Batman finds him. And that's about it. So I like the artwork. The story did not hook me in any deeper, meaningful way. I couldn't really even adequately recap it to you. But the best part was also that it just came with this nice ash can. A preview of the next issue. And I really, I don't know. I could read a whole book by Jim Lee done in a style like this personally, because it really shows that he knows gesture and anatomy very well. Like sometimes you look at this and there's so many different types of hatching and rendering techniques that it looks cool to look at, but you're like, well, what's the underlying structure there? You can't always see a big block of like this. If this was all in shadow, you'd go, oh, that's a good silhouette against like a detailed background. But when it's all just like lots and lots of little lines, it becomes a little harder to separate. But this really breaks it down in a simple way and goes, hey, Jim Lee can take all that like rendering out and still create some really dynamic looking people. Do you know what I mean? I did not see the panel. It looked like a high energy panel of Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane at WonderCon. I think that's awesome. So I guess I don't have a whole lot more to say, and I'm just going to move forward. This is a little more interesting, I think, to talk about. Absolute Martian Manhunter is a new take on Martian Manhunter. So technically, if you don't already know the character, doesn't matter. This is a jumping on point. And we've got an FBI agent, Agent John Jones. He's been in an explosion on his business. Somehow he survived. And he sort of keeps hallucinating in a specific way. By the way, he's married with a wife and a kid. And every once in a while, he sees the world, like, in this very bright way. And he says he's feeling like senses or intuition from people. The thing I like the most is a metaphor for Martian Manhunter's psychic abilities, okay? Let me see where I can find that. Yeah, okay. So he as an agent is going out to investigate stuff, and he feels like he just sort of like witnesses this colored smoke emerging from people. And when he inhales it, because it's just all around, he can't help but sort of sense the memories of this person. That's a really interesting way of doing things. Look, no panel borders. We're just going to use some negative space to indicate the passage of time. Because that's a little more nebulous than a hard panel border, it means that this whole scene becomes a little dreamlike and esoteric. And I like that. Again, Javier Rodriguez didn't just draw this. He did the colors. Very vibrant, right? Very vibrant. And obviously only a very few colors. He doesn't start seeing little bald doctors. Close. It's an interesting metaphor for like what it would be like, I think, to be telepathic and sort of have that sensory input. Like it's an interesting metaphor, coming up with it like sort of smoke, and he's sort of becomes like to this point where he's going through the city and he's almost like he's coughing on all of it, he's choking on it, like it's too much. I want to point out one great thing at the end. So they've got this page, and it's got like details on how you're supposed to look at this page of Agent John Jones. And to show you properly, I grabbed a light box here. Let me plug it in because I want to show you something. And then I want to get this out of my way because it's too many things on my desk. Okay. So this is designed specifically to look at this page this way. Oh, might be a little too much light here. Tell you what, I'm going to turn this off for a minute. There we go. There we go. Look at that. So you've got the page this way, and that's John Jones. And then he's realizing that there's another sort of entity within him. That's why he's sort of sensing these telepathic things. There's an entity within him. It says, "We're the Martian mind blanker." Look at that. Isn't that fun? I love it when people play with the format of a comic. And that is a really cool example of that. So if you just looked at this page, it doesn't really mean anything by itself. It is meant to be taken one way specifically. It is meant to be taken this way. And I think that that's a really interesting, cool idea. I love it. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that this is an example of the artist really adding to the story in a significant way. I was impressed with what Javier did in this. I first read this when I was very tired, and I was sort of doing that thing where you're reading a page and you get to the end and you realize you haven't actually absorbed it, and you sort of go back and try to read it, but you're just too tired. And I woke up and I go like, oh, was I getting tired because it wasn't engaging? I'm going to just start fresh. Go back to the beginning and I start reading it in the morning when I've got energy. And no, it captured me quite a bit. This is a really interesting, weird, psychedelic journey for the guy. I don't want to talk too much about plot. This is about character. And I just admire that they are sort of taking chances. This is a very different take on Martian Manhunter. In the mainstream comics, Martian Manhunter is a shape-shifting alien with powers. But it seems like it really is two characters living together, and what that will be. I just want to mention that like some people really seem to like the gimmick. But I think it's a little bit more than a gimmick. I think it's just a creative storytelling use. Yeah, exactly. It's using the medium in a way you couldn't do this in any other medium. You couldn't take a page and hold it up against light and see something new, a second layer to that story and to that art. You couldn't do that with another storytelling medium. Not the same way. So I love that. I really admire that they're taking some big swings in this. Now, did I connect to the character enough that I definitely want to see his full story and where it goes? I don't know. I don't know. I admired what they were going for with this. And I admired it enough that I'm going to read a second issue, especially because Dennis Camp has really impressed me with what he's done with the Ultimates. So that's earned a certain level of trust. The only reason I even like hesitate to say like, oh, you know, I'll definitely keep going is this is just too many comics to be reading on a weekly basis. It really is. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I can't afford it. I cannot afford to get this many comics every week. I think that there's a lot of references going in here, and I think you're absolutely right that, like, you know, we're going with a somewhat simpler, well, deceptively simple, like a less textured and rendered art style. I think that there are a bit of 60s vibes to the color palette, to just like the simplicity of things like furniture and clothes. Not to specifically date it in the 60s, but I think it is an intentional reference there. You know, in the best way possible, I'll just say that this reminds me of some of Darwin Cook's best work. I really like Darwin Cook a lot. I'd recommend it. And I know I sort of gave away a gimmick in there, but if you haven't read it, I think that's the kind of thing that's probably going to sell you on trying it. So we'll see where it goes from there. This one really impressed me. I did not have this on my radar too much, but I saw it on the shelf and I'm like, oh, Patrick Horvath. You know what? I liked Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Let's see what this is. And I had heard of it, but I didn't realize it was coming out. This is a one-shot. It's a good-sized story. This was a book that Patrick Horvath had pitched before Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, and it got passed. But now that he's had a huge hit, Oni has picked this up. This is a great speculative sci-fi type story where it takes place in a near future where, you know, we should be so lucky. There is a World Finance League, and what they do is if you make, I think it's over $200 million, your name can come up in the lottery. It's a lottery. It doesn't happen to every rich person, but the super rich, the ultra rich, you could get drawn your name in a lottery, and you can do one of two things. You can either donate the vast majority of your assets to like the World Finance League, and it's done a little bit more of like a communist thing where it's, you know, not completely communist, but it's given back to society. Okay. Or if you want to try to keep your money, you can fight for it in an arena against another person. And there's this one guy who's won like 20 battles. He's a good fighter. But this sets it all up, and it becomes a story where his former business partner, he screwed her over like many years ago. And she has spent the last several years becoming like ultra successful just so that she can fight him in the arena. And you're really on her side because this guy's a scumbag. He's awful. Anyway, I'm not going to show you the whole battle and everything. That's just the premise. I will say, though, some of the violence in this is so gnarly. Like, this is this guy, Ted, okay? The guy that can fight well, and he fights against, like, another ultra-wealthy, like, billionaire or something. I don't think it's 200 million. I think it's, like, 200 billion or something. Whatever it is. Look, he, like, uses a hammer to crush the guy's arm and then the other arm, and the guy's, like, got no arms. And then he smashes his head, and we see the remains of the face on the hammer, or like the imprint from the hammer. And that is just so gross looking. It's not that detailed, but it's just such a gross idea. So anyway, it is a little bit gory. I will say that. It's kind of fun, okay? This is like dark satire, just to be clear. It's not like meant to be preachy, like, if you have too much money, this should happen to you. No, it's about a specific asshole, and they've created a world around it. And so, like, we're talking about some issues like that we can each have opinions on, but it's very much about like one specific guy who was terrible and how this woman comes for revenge and what happens then. Yeah, originally this was passed on, apparently. It's pretty great, folks. It's just one issue, and yeah, 56 pages. 56 pages. Capitalism by Combat. And at the very back, it has some like a short interview about the behind the scenes and like him trying to like pledge or pitch the idea, I mean, and like how that went, which is, I think, very interesting. Yeah, it's a high concept book. I think it's a blast. I think it's funny and interesting. Yeah, the cover sort of warns you. You once you are in the lottery and you win a game, like you can elect to either be put back into the lottery or you can just keep fighting. And if you fight, you get to keep your money as long as you stay alive. And he says, like, oh, I'm an old-fashioned guy. He's like, I believe in the concept of this, but, you know, I want to keep what I earned. It's a little absurd here and there, but it's yes, there's some stuff of, like, Stephen King's Running Man. I mean, people watch it for entertainment. So, yeah. He's fighting on purpose. He wants to stay like one of the richest men in the world, and he gets cocky and doesn't think anybody can beat him, and he might be right, which makes him even more annoying. It's strongly recommended. See, do I have anything to say about the latest issue of Ultimate X-Men? It's another issue by, like, guest artist Messina. What's his name? David Messina? I forget. It says at the back, doesn't it? It's a good story. David Messina. It's good. I miss Marco Cicchetto just because I feel like he dictates the vibe of this book. But it is cool seeing stories with, like, you know, a Peter Parker that's got a wife and kids and what he's like to be sort of a dad. I like this version of MJ too. She's really likable. She's not just there, you know. She's also like, she's really good at marketing and she's really nice to Peter. You can tell that that's because of love. Like, because we had an issue where she was like really having trouble getting along with her sister and her mom. I don't know. Just a simple line like this, like where he's like, why do you love me? Because you're awesome and really good looking. You couldn't have done that with the Spider-Man the way Steve Ditko drew him. But as soon as John Romita Sr. came around and became the Spider-Man artist, Jeff Darrow said this to me. He was like, what was that? All of a sudden, like, Peter Parker became this GQ model. And I was like, yeah, he did change quite a bit from Ditko to Romita. And ever since then, Peter's just been a good-looking guy. It's fun. It's fun. This was good. This was really good. Uncanny X-Men. I'm biased. I really like Gavin Guidry's art. I really like his artwork. He reminds me in the best ways possible of artists like Alex Toth or Stuart Immonen, you know, guys that really know like structure and uses an economy of line work, but it's all like really attractive line work. I love the thick lines on the outside and like the nice thin lines for just like simple bits of facial details. And here's what's cool about this. This is a story mostly about Gambit. Gambit is from New Orleans. And so is Gavin. He is. So I live down in New Orleans. I got to experience a lot of this stuff. Picking up crawfish for a boil. And even having the details in one point of like how you eat and enjoy crawfish. Like it just like literally talks you through like how you break them apart and where you get the bits of meat. And it's just like, yeah, it's just a story telling us a little something about Gambit from like his childhood to encountering a mutant he knew as a kid as an adult. And Gavin does a lot of things that I just don't think another artist that didn't live there would know to do. This is a very lightly illustrated background, right? But that is totally the way New Orleans looks. New Orleans is flat. New Orleans has lots of gates and very simple brick, and then very classic designs for like their houses out in like, you know, the more the bayou area. There's just every little bit of the detail in the background. What you see is very accurate to New Orleans. It really feels authentic in the coolest ways. Oh, even little things like this. Young Remy LeBeau here is wearing a certain kind of boot that they really do wear when they go out into these marshy areas to get like crawfish and stuff. It's little stuff, but it's a lot of authenticity. A lot of authenticity. Yes, I did. Daiquiri isn't even my favorite kind of alcoholic beverage, but when you can just drive up and get a drive-through like 32 or 64 ounce daiquiri, I'm telling you, sometimes in the summer, I would just drive, like it was only like a mile away from my house, if that, probably less. I would go to this drive-through daiquiri stand, get a fruity 64 ounce daiquiri, hot summer day. I'd sit on my porch. I'd probably, honestly, read comic books and just sip and nurse a daiquiri for the whole afternoon. It was a blast. Oh, yeah, I could see a bit of all red in there too. Sure. Anyway, folks, if you are curious about the current era of X-Men, it's basically a standalone one-issue story, and I like that. I feel like more comics should have a little bit of this and a little less of all the crossover stuff that sort of interrupts the flow. It just gives us a nice look at Gambit. By the way, this cover, I will say, this is by David Marquez, the usual artist. And Marquez does do a gorgeous Bourbon Street, or at least French Quarter Street. That is gorgeous. But yeah, Gavin really knocked it out of the park. I have been lucky enough to see some of the stuff Gavin is doing for DC in a couple months, and he is just by leaps and bounds growing. He's got like a rendering technique for shadow that I was noticing on certain metallic things. Oh, I just was like, it's so nerdy to get like that specific about how something is drawn and get that excited. But Gavin's art is really, really good, and it's really exciting. I can't wait to talk to you guys about the stuff he's doing at DC. There is some all red ancestry. Okay, for a minute I thought you meant literally, but you mean artistic ancestry. Got it. A banana daiquiri on a hot summer day, I would take that right now. They don't have anything like that here. It is bonkers, isn't it, that you can get drive-through alcohol? It's bonkers, but that's New Orleans. It's part of why I love it. So this is the final issue of Wolverine Revenge. But I will say, as a story, I found it okay. You know, it delivers what it promises to be, a revenge story. It delivers what it promises. The main reason I think to get it is not necessarily Jonathan Hickman's story so much as Greg Capullo's art. It is fun to see Greg Capullo working on these Marvel characters, working in this world again. You know, that's in large part where he got his start, working on books like Quasar and X-Force back in the day. Mott, thank you for jumping in. Always nice to see you. Had a great time talking about Tyler's book Out of Alcatraz last week. Just, I'm doing well. Thank you for jumping in. Nice of you. Yeah, I love seeing Greg's art too. It's nice. Boy, did I loved his work back in the Quasar era. Very delicate line work. And then, you know, he went a little more cartoony in a good way. Like, you know, did some cartooning stuff when he did Spawn. And now he's sort of like getting a little closer to the essentials and storytelling and character expression. And, he's very good. He really is. Greg Capullo. And it's fun these days to just see, like, I've been sort of like complaining here and there that Marvel doesn't always have great art on all of their books. But here's 2 in a row where I've got Gavin Guidry and Greg Capullo, and both are really, really strong. That said, the story isn't exceptionally satisfying, minus like the last couple pages. I'll just say that this ends with Wolverine, like an old man Wolverine who's theoretically gotten all his revenge and everything. He just ends up in a really unique place that I never could have guessed. And it does suit the story very well. So I'll give Jonathan Hickman props for, like, the story is a little weird. It's a little by the numbers as far as revenge goes. It gives him enough of a motivation, but it's a little nihilistic, so it's not that much fun. But it does end pretty satisfyingly. And no matter what, the artwork is really rock solid. Really good. Well, he keeps saying that, but I don't think anyone's going to let him. Here's another Marvel book that I enjoyed. And at first, I thought for a minute that I wasn't enjoying it for a minute. And then I switched back and go, no, I definitely am enjoying it. I love Godzilla. I love a lot of these superheroes. This satisfies. Thank you for the super chat. How many Wolverines are there right now? Just to be clear, this one is not like set in any sort of mainstream continuity. It is just a 5-issue hypothetical story. Call it whatever you want. Call it what if you want. It doesn't matter. But as far as like what in mainstream comics, there are 2. There's Wolverine and Laura, his clone. So there are 2 Wolverines. So I will take a shot on a lot of Godzilla stuff. There's a unique idea here where Marvel is doing a series of one-shots. Each one is set in a specific decade. Godzilla is drawn as he looked in that decade, and it's set with like the heroes that kind of defined that decade. So we're starting with the 60s. Fantastic Four. That's what started, modern Marvel. And, classic Showa era Godzilla. Now I'm going to show you just a little bit of the pages for a minute, and you tell me if you can tell right away who drew it. You probably can, but it doesn't necessarily look like all of his regular art. But you can also see it starts off with, like, right away giving you what you want. Fantastic Four versus Godzilla. Yeah, exactly right. This is John Romita Jr. It is not necessarily the way John Romita Jr. always draws things. And at first I was like, did he rush this or something? Because the art looks very simple in a lot of pages. Very simple in a lot of pages. But I think that what he's going for is literally trying to be a little retro and, doing that within his style. Anyway, what works about it is this. Who wrote it? Ryan North. I have been talking up for, I think like 2 years straight now, how good Fantastic Four by Ryan North is. In fact, I won't review this current issue, but over 2 years, 2.5 years, he's been the writer on Fantastic Four, and he gets these characters. They're a family, they're friends, they're adventurers, they're scientists, they're explorers. Somehow he gets all of that, and he finds cool new ways to do that, but there's almost always one little scientific mystery or something at its core. Like a scientific idea of a way to use their powers in a new way, maybe, to defeat an enemy. And I like that. And this one is no exception. So I'm going to show you a couple reasons why I like this. One, they need to distract King Ghidorah in this issue. King Ghidorah is my personal favorite Godzilla enemy. I love a lot, but King Ghidorah is my favorite. To distract him, Sue finds a way to use her powers in a new way. Because she goes, when I make things invisible, what it is it's about bending light. Now, technically, there should be a way for me to bend light to just make the same image of what's in front look bigger. All that would be like sort of expanding the light on it. And so she just makes thing look kaiju sized. It's described a little bit more, and it's just a distraction. It's a great idea on how to sort of like say, hey, here's what we know about the character and her powers, and we're going to just find a way to experiment with them a little. Not change them, just push what we know about it. I like it. Here's another part that's cool. So we've got Godzilla, we've got the Fantastic Four. We've also got Galactus, who has taken King Ghidorah, who is in the movies a space alien, and he has made King Ghidorah his new herald, because this takes place at the point in time in the comics when Silver Surfer was like no longer his herald, and Galactus had banished him, trapped him on Earth. Okay? So it builds up to needing to be Godzilla and the Fantastic Four against a King Ghidorah that's powered by the cosmic. That's fun. I just want to say, Ryan North starting off strong with these. It's a great story that gives us what we want. We get like, you know, Godzilla versus the Fantastic Four, but we also sort of get them teaming up, sort of, and it's very satisfying. Comic book science, cosmic powered Ghidorah. It's already powerful enough, but then again, Godzilla's pretty powerful. So how do you raise that? Oh, last thing I'll point out that's really fun that not everybody will necessarily appreciate, but I appreciate it a lot. Godzilla was a comic that Marvel did back in the late 70s. Anyway, what they've done here is this is the, let me expand this out so you can see this a little better for just this. This is like the 2-page title sheet. And so what they've done here is they have taken the old Herb Trimpe drawn Godzillas, used those panels, and then an outline of sort of the modern MonsterVerse Godzilla. And yeah, they've got like the colored panels as the background and black and white panels filling in this Godzilla. And I just think that that's a really nice homage to the fact that Marvel has touched Godzilla before. And it's a really nice title page. And I appreciate that they've done that. I hope that the Herb Trimpe estate gets a little something out of this. I don't know how any of that works. But as a fan, it's fun to see this again, to see that acknowledgement. So just a really fun issue. It's not like explicitly set in any continuity. It's just a fun story. Turn your brain off, enjoy it. Look, here's Radiant Black 32, and I didn't think to grab it, but here's my page in the back. It's a comic strip. Some of the early issues of Radiant Black, they haven't done this for a little while, but they used to have the character of Marshall having his school of business, where he's just sort of like, trying to get money somehow. And I just have a little thing about him doodling at work and somebody saying that he should sell them and that giving him an idea. But the main story is mostly about Marshall trying to balance being Radiant Black with his sort of ongoing home life. And my favorite part about it is he joins, what's that dating website for like celebrities called? Raya? I think it's called Raya. So Marshall hasn't been having much luck on the dating apps. So he puts on his Radiant Black helmet and joins Raya and gets a bunch of dates that don't go well. But it's really funny. The last 2 issues have had some funny dating stuff. Farmers only. Anyway, total blast. Some really nice art by Eduardo Ferragamo. Yeah. I love this book. Like, that's a really nice sort of establishing shot panel there, in my opinion. I admire that. I think that looks really nice. And you can sort of tell that, like, this is his phone. His powers aren't really that he's flying so much as he can manipulate gravity, you know? I do recommend this book. I'll wrap up my conversation about this week's comics in 1 second. I will say, last one I've got some things to say about is this. We're taking everyone down with us. I just thought the premise sounded interesting, but I have to admit to not being overly familiar with the creative team. Writer is Matthew Rosenberg. Art is Stefano Landini. And it involves this girl whose scientist dad is never paying attention to her, so she's like playing simple games like hide and seek with these robots that work on the island. And she's like, trying to get her dad's attention. And he's like, oh, the stuff I'm doing is so important. I can't be bothered with these frivolous games. Her mother is implied to have already passed on. He just takes his science work so hard. But I think what it's about, just without spoiling anything, I think he's basically a mad scientist villain. And his daughter is just too young to understand that. 18 panel page. Did I miss something? Oh, yeah, this. Yeah. It's a lot of panels. And the reason it works is it focuses on character expression, just like one important thing per, word balloon. It's good. It's interesting, is all I want to say. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but the dad definitely seems to be a bit of a creep, and I think it's going to go some strange directions is all. I think, I don't know your exact tastes, Mott, but I think you might like it just because it definitely breaks the mold. There's a bit of science fiction stuff here. There's possibly a bit of spy stuff, like, James Bondish. But I'm pretty sure it's, the cool thing about it, the reason it works is that it's very much focused on the main character, Annalicia. Just a really young girl, and her very strange relationship with her father, who seems to be a total creep. The title is exactly how I'm feeling right now concerning my slum lady who's been illegally harassing my family. Oh my God. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I won't go into like long reviews, but I did read other things. I will say Absolute Wolverine, interesting. Or I should say Ultimate Wolverine. Absolute Wonder Woman, very good. Top tier, I will say. Also, regular Wonder Woman came out. And I'm a little surprised that they release Absolute Wonder Woman and regular Wonder Woman on the same day. I feel like that's just not necessarily good marketing, that those should come out about 2 weeks apart. Because they're both very good, and I think anybody that likes Wonder Woman, even though they're different continuity, would potentially like to get both, and that's like, why add that expense in 1 week? I would just say like that. I would separate that by like a couple weeks personally, but yeah, this is Wonder Woman continues to be a very, very strong title right now. Faith Erin Hicks, somebody I never would have expected to work on like a horror book like this. I've read some of her slightly more all ages adventure material. I've met her in person. She's a great writer artist. She comes up with a great take on the Mummy that makes it more of a focuses a bit more on the romance, even though it's still horror, and a bit more on being an outsider. It's really, really good. I got Peacemaker Presents Vigilante Eagly double feature. I don't think I'll get the other 4 issues because I kind of get it, but I will say that the artwork for the Vigilante story by Mitch Gerads, it's pretty great. And it is funny. It does feel very much like it's from the show. So if you really like the Peacemaker show, this really does feel like it's a part of that. And it does list James Gunn as a story consultant on both parts of the story, and it feels authentic. Incredible Hulk continues to be a great horror book. It's good. I don't think that this is the part you should jump in, issue 23, but if you've been enjoying it, this Nick Klein really knocks it out of the park with some of this art. Second to last issue of Black Canary, Best of the Best. Yeah, it's become an emotional journey, even though it's also a fight comic, because it's really about a daughter in a relationship with her mother. This would pass the Bechdel test, folks. There's a lot of scenes where they're just talking about the relationship with each other and nothing else. And there's some badass action in here by Ryan Sook. It mixes together MMA, like kickboxing, pro wrestling. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, but it's good. And if you're not reading G.I. Joe already, issue 315 is probably a tough one to get you to jump in on, but it's as good as it's ever been. We've got Destro has captured Cobra Commander. We've got the G.I. Joe team trying to figure out what's happened to all these Cobra assets, and they've actually been taken over by Revanche, which is a group of AI robots that are quite big assholes. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So, quite a week. But I like to try to pick a book of the week. It is not going to be Batman Hush 2. Great art, but the story is nowhere near compelling enough to put it up there. So I think options for best of the week would include Absolute Martian Manhunter. They would include Free for All. They would include Uncanny X-Men. And Godzilla versus Fantastic Four. Now, best of the week. Let me spread these out a little and make my case. Even though this is a really satisfying issue of Uncanny X-Men, it probably just doesn't go quite deep enough to make it, something that you'd call an all-time classic, okay? But it is very good. It's very good. It's very fun. If you missed X-Men and you just want to read like a single issue, get a sense of what it is right now, but get a full story, it's a strong recommendation. Uncanny X-Men 12. I think that this is a very cool Godzilla Fantastic Four thing, but even though John Romita Jr. is often a favorite artist of mine, I do think that this slightly simpler style doesn't always completely work for me. Love the story, still very satisfied with it, but I'd just say that like it's unbalanced in that regard, like a better story than it is art. And I say that out of like an artist that I love. So now I'm left with Absolute Martian Manhunter and Free for All. And you know what? Like, I think Absolute Martian Manhunter is a really impressive bit of experimental storytelling for a mainstream superhero book. And I do recommend it. But my pick for the book of the week, my pick for the best comic of the week would be Free for All by Patrick Horvath. This is published by Oni, but it's such a singular vision of a creator. It's satirical. It's, kind of gory and stuff, but this it gives you a complete big story. It's relevant today without being preachy, and it gives us a satisfying character arc for two different people. I really do think that overall I have to call this my book of the week. The Comic Tropes book of the week is Free for All by Patrick Horvath. But I am not discounting how good several of these other books were. I hope that like my quick little look at them, as well as like the runners up, give you some options for comics that you might want to check out yourself. So I like this. I got to go with the Gambit being done by an actual Cajun for a change. Totally appreciate it. Martian Manhunter for me. I love it. I sincerely do. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all written by Larry Hama. 315 issues by Larry Hama. To be clear, I think that there was possibly one, maybe two issues of the Marvel G.I. Joe run that might have been written by a fill-in writer, but it is Larry Hama's G.I. Joe. So he did 155 issues at Marvel, and then he did over 100 more at IDW, continuing the same continuity, the same characters. Now it's at Skybound. Different publishers, all the same story. Hulk, very nice. Very, very nice. It is always nice to see Gavin's art. Free for All, I had money running on it. You had money riding on it. I thought I'd just do a little inking, but not a lot. I don't know if this looks like anything to anybody, but some of you may remember. And I just realized recently, this is what prompted it. 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, I, perhaps ill-advisedly, spent time running around the Seattle streets at night as the real-life superhero Omega. And, yeah, so this was me and my team. Evocatus, Midnight Jack, Shade, Boomer, Girl Scout, Phoenix Jones. What a time. What a time. Would I recommend doing this stuff, being a real-life superhero? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was a wild time in my life. I was trying something new. I was trying to make friends. I think I was a net good, but I also think it was a unnecessary idea. I thought it would inspire our city to be better people for some reason. It was more like they looked at us as a novelty at best. Some people appreciated what we did, and I think I did do a few good deeds and helped a few people, but it was a very silly time. 276 issues of Savage Dragon, that's super impressive. He hasn't had to really retcon out anything. Like I say, like there were like about, I know there was at least one issue or very early on in the first half year to year of the Marvel run where somebody wrote a Red October story. But Hama has used the Red October since then. Gotta say it in all caps. Omega! I hadn't watched your episode about your experience as a real-life superhero. Man, what a ride that was. You totally made a difference. You know, every once in a while I sit down and think I'm going to like draw something like this, but I'm so slow. I really need to find some sort of an artist that would be like a good fit and wants to like use their time to tell my story, which, you know, that's a tough sell. Like, not most people are not going to want to write, like, you know, dedicate their time to drawing somebody's sort of biographical story. I don't know. I think think it is an interesting period in my life that does make for an interesting story, but I don't know if it's something I can capture the right artist's attention with. Yeah, I look back at it, it seems pretty silly that this is what I did. But, I was new to a new city, and I knew like two people. I knew like my friend Chuck, and um, I knew Phoenix Jones from interviewing him. And I just thought, all right, maybe I'll just hang out and try to do what he does and see. At the time, I had been working out like crazy. It was, it was 10 over 10 years ago now. And I was a younger guy. I used to do every single day, Monday through Friday, during my lunch break, I did the insanity workout because my company had a gym, and I did that religiously. And at night, 2 to 3 times a week, I would use a personal trainer for another hour, and I would take Krav Maga for like 1 to 2 hours every night. So I was working out like crazy. No, I was not Kenny Omega. Oh, and I was not Omega the Time Lord. April Fool's Day tomorrow. Yeah, and I hope tomorrow people are kind. It's also going to be the anniversary of Ed Piskor passing away, and I will say, I miss Ed. I think people judged him very harshly. In the moment, I was even judging him. I don't think, but I still reached out to him, and I thought he was doing better than he was doing. And it's just like shows us, I think, that even when I talk about like, people doing bad things, like trying to make sure that you give them some grace, make sure that we're not all dogpiling on someone. Yeah, I still have my like calls and texts to Ed on my phone, and it's just it's really hard to think that it's been a year since all that went down. By the way, Dave is in here on West Coast Avengers, and he had about I think 4 of Ed's friends on his show to just talk about remembering him, and it's very positive. Not Kid Omega, not Omega Red. I did not wear an Omega watch. Yeah, like Ed did do a lot to like, bring together an indie community. There were things like he also did, and sometimes that annoyed me with how he treated some of his supporters and fans here and there. But it was nothing that like, was terrible and like, somebody deserves to face punishment for. It was just not the way I would have treated them. But that doesn't make it right or wrong. He distanced himself from some of his fans here and there, and I was just like, what? These are some of your biggest supporters. Be nicer to them. But anyway, he was a very creative person. I met him when he was working with Harvey Picard. I met him at like an SPX in like, geez, I don't even know, like the early 2000s, but I'd have to look it up exactly what year. But he was long before either of us ever did YouTube or anything. He was getting his break doing a story with Harvey Picard, and he was at the SPX. And he had a very different vibe too. But I did talk to him back then, and we realized that like later we were like, wait a minute. We've been talking to each other, like, because we each have YouTube and stuff, but did we meet? And we've talked and we were like, oh, yeah, that's funny. We did meet. We met like over a decade ago. That's crazy. That's the comic book world. Anyway. How many people knew your secret identity? I mean, my wife and her parents, because we were all living together at the time. I guess basically the people on my team sort of did, but who else would have known? I told my sister. I don't have my original suit, the one that I'm illustrating here. I sort of switched to a second version of the suit, which in retrospect I don't like as much, but I was trying different things to see what was most efficient running around out in the street at night. The mask was better, the upper body armor not as much, but it would get stinky, it would get sweaty, so I've thrown it out. I don't have it anymore. Yeah, I talked about it a little with you. It was Omega no more. I walked away. Yes, exactly. Paste Pot Pete probably did know. Silver Age and Bronze Age. Yeah, I had basically two main looks. Honey, where is my super suit? I remember one of the big things that sort of disillusioned me is we had been preparing for May Day here in Seattle. On May 1st, there's always a big parade by people in unions. It's like a Labor Day. But there's also a lot of weird white supremacy groups in the Pacific Northwest. And they always try to go and disrupt it. They wear masks and they're in online groups of anarchists. That's what they call themselves, but it's much more insidious than that, in my opinion. Anyway, they cause trouble every year. So we'd been preparing to make sure that what our plan was for following this parade and this, that, and the other. And Phoenix insisted that we all wear boots in case we ran across areas that had glass and nails and stuff like that. He didn't want any of us to get a nail through the shoe. So I wore boots. He showed up wearing sneakers though. He was like, yeah, I thought about it. And I was like, well, I should wear sneakers. We're going to be walking a long time. And we walked miles and miles that day. And because I was in boots, my feet were all bloody and blistered at the end. It was a mess. It was so annoying. Do you think if it was properly planned, there could ever be a real life superhero that is successful? No, I don't. Having done it, I don't think that I think that I think you can do outreach to feed homeless people. And I think that in the moment, if you see somebody being, abused or something, that you can step up and potentially insert yourself. But if you're going to be a superhero, you're not going to have the resources to legally subdue someone. You're going to need the police at a certain point for it. It's a mess. It's a total mess. So did I do some good things? Yeah, I helped some people that got seriously injured. I broke up some fights. I helped somebody that was lost. There were things that I did that were helpful, but I wouldn't have had to be in a superhero suit for any of it, really. I just would have had to be willing to do the right thing. I started to, and then I didn't really like the art. I need a better art. So, it's there's only so much you can really do before you really start butting up against the law. And you're well, I don't like the cops. Yeah, but they're the only ones with the legal authority to do certain things. And they're the ones that can, often be equipped with, medical aid or, a vehicle to transport people. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So, you can do it and not be a bad person. You can, render aid, but on a regular basis, no one could ever be efficient like Batman or anything. You just couldn't. Yeah, I think you're right. Somebody like a firefighter, a doctor, certain peacekeeping officials. So boots are essential for when we would patrol city blocks. But what I'm saying is we followed a huge parade because of these anarchists that would vandalize and attack people and stuff. And for going on a parade route of miles and miles, I would just say boots do not work well. You need sneakers. Oh, cool. You met Derek Kirkham? Dude, he is just the best. I am so glad I've gotten to know Derek. He is ridiculously talented, of course, but just kind. Just really, really kind. And funny. I think he's really funny. So anyway, talking about all sorts of different things. Daredevil's been pretty good, I think. I've been enjoying that. Anybody else watching it? No spoilers. It's not what I do here, really, but I've been enjoying it. I think it's a good season thus far. I think a lot of episodes are dedicated to what works well on television. Trying to keep it to a single location, focus on interpersonal dynamics as compared to big bombastic action all over the place. Derek is so good. He's so cool. Last Mermaid is such a good book. I think it's incredible. Comfortable footwear is essential for superheroing. What if you had to go up against a maniac cop? Well, then all bets are off. All bets are off. Oh, you're up to date on that, Gene? We'll chat sometime about it. You've been liking it? I like that. Yeah, I feel like the first episode, tonally, a little all over the place. But by the time you get to episodes the courtroom episode or the episode where there are bank hostages, those are really good. His interactions, his relationship with the Punisher, things like that, that's really cool. Yeah, I would say it's pretty much as good as the Netflix show. Yeah. Because it's got the same actors. And they do have solid writers behind it. Yeah. Beyond the Spider-Verse releasing in 2027. I hope so, but I'll believe it when I see it. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. I think the first two are very, very good. The first one kind of clearly has reshoots. That it's tonally, you're I don't know exactly what was done when, but it's not fitting together seamlessly here. It's not, but it's okay. It's okay. The bank one had no reshoots at all. The bank one was great. It was really, really good. But that they're leaning in to the fact that it's TV and not trying to do small movies every week. That's not what it is. It is a TV show. So lean into the fact that it's a TV show. What does TV do well? There are certain things TV does well that you should lean into. That's all. Yeah, I agree. It was parts of it were kind of cool what they were trying to do with the action scene, but it did feel very digital and not up to standard. I agree. It's a good premise. It's a good premise. Which character would you say screws up the most? Mark from Invincible or Grant McKay from Black Science? Maybe Grant. And I'll just say that because he's more of an adult than Mark is, at least, starts as a teenager. It's Disney. Netflix Daredevil's pretty darn good. It's really solid. Really good. I agree, Beowulf. Like, there's been some nice minor connective tissue to the MCU. It's not just in there as like fan service. It like actually sort of just makes the world feel a little bit bigger. But it doesn't like slow anything down. I've been impressed with a lot of it. Yeah. The show I'm really enjoying right now is my wife and I are more than halfway through season 2 of Severance. So we're almost all the way up to date on Severance. And it's a good show. It's really cool. At its best, and that it's not every episode, but at its best, it reminds me of stuff I like Twin Peaks, where it's not it's quirky, but it's also about something, you know. So, yeah, I do recommend that if you haven't checked it out. But I've heard that a lot of shows on Apple are good, and I just haven't had time to watch more than like basically Severance and Daredevil. That's like all I've seen lately. Can't really say much more than that. Beats me, man. Probably. I've heard good things about that. That is the medical drama show, correct? The Pit? Light cotton socks first, topped with thick wool hiking socks. Okay. I appreciate the advice. I don't know, and I hope it's soon. That is some of my favorite Star Trek. I know some people aren't as big fans, but I think Strange New Worlds is great Star Trek. Leans into the episodic, gives us really cool characters, nice surprises. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. It's good, Gene. Maybe I'll get up to it at some point. The Pit is excellent. Speaking as someone who has several family members who work in ERs and having heard stories at family reunions. That's nice to hear. A Legend of Zelda movie, really? Animated? I think it would work better animated than live action. Yes, The Pit starring Dale Keown. I keep hoping they will add an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. character randomly. I know. That would be nice, but I don't think that they're going to do that. I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has come and gone. I am going to, I think, call it a show and just thank everybody for being here and adding your commentary. We lucked out. So many wonderful regulars, a bunch of new people, a bunch of professionals. Can't thank you all for adding to the show with stuff like that. You know, like this show, it may seem like visually, it's like, okay, it's Chris from Comic Tropes just talking. But it's not. It really is our interaction, and I appreciate it. Like, you guys help make the show what it is. And you're each entitled to 1 penny, because that's about what I would make, is 1 penny per viewer. It's always nice talking comics, though, and I hope that beyond just having the fun of riffing on news, doing art, talking about what we're watching, that some of the comics that we talk about have like gotten you interested in trying something new. I really hope so, because there's a lot of great stuff. I am going to try to do a live stream sometime soon. I've got a stack of indie comics that have been sent to the PO box, a good amount, like almost 20. So I really want to do one of those. I'm just trying to find a place to put it in, because I think I've said before on the show, but I've switched my job. I'm still at the same company, but I've switched jobs. And it means that I'm in training and I have a very different schedule. I used to have a regular schedule. Right now, my schedule is it's different every day. So it's really hard for me to figure out when I'm fitting that in. But I will say that the next Comic Tropes episode should be done by tomorrow night. I think I'm really close to finishing the edit on that. I think I can finish it by tomorrow. So I'm excited to share that. It's just sort of a weird bit of history one. And then some of the things that I want to talk about in the near future is I've decided I really want to talk about Joe Kubert, what Joe Kubert did. I think he's a pretty big name in comics. I've got some things to say. And I also really want to talk about a manga that I initially loved and felt like it unfortunately fell off, and try to figure out why it fell off. Like find something useful that we can learn from something like that. And that's My Hero Academia. I really feel like it fell off. And thank you for this comment, Mod. I always get compliments for my Godzilla cardigan. Yeah, we got Godzilla on the arms. I've got Godzilla. This is my Godzilla cardigan with, like, you know, all the Japan defensive forces going up against it. It's comfortable. It's a little cold down in my basement where I do this, so I get to like wear this. But thank you. You didn't even notice the Godzilla. I think that's part of what makes it nice, though, is it's just like a nice cardigan. And like, if you don't see like the red, you almost don't notice that it's a nerdy cardigan. Yeah, I know. I'm wearing it here. You guys can't necessarily tell, but this is my super nerdy Godzilla cardigan. Surprise! The Kubert School is an important thing to talk about, I think. So yeah, some stuff that I'll be working on in the near future. Garfield likes Mondays now because of your show. Yeah. I think, let me try to remember the name of this. Hold on, I'm looking it up. Yeah, it's a brand called Middle of Beyond. And if you've ever watched Trash Movie Bonanza with me and Jim, sometimes Jim has a nice cardigan. It's a slightly different style, but it has the pattern of the hotel from The Shining. That's also a Middle of Beyond design. So, yeah. Very cool, Joe. Very cool. You know what? I think I would enjoy a Godzilla coloring book. The keyboard sounded fake. It was real. It was real. Folks, yeah, I'm going to end it so that I can have some dinner and get to work trying to wrap up the latest Comic Tropes episode. I want it to be a fun one. Thank you for this. You guys have made this a great, great evening. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you if you're watching this later, like after it's live, like once it's archived. It means so much to me. If you have time, if you can hit like and subscribe, that really helps the channel. I'll leave it there. Thanks, everybody. Keep reading comics. Bye.